Welcome back to another edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie O'Leary. I got quite a few things to talk about today. The decommitment of four-star Chase Linton from the program after he got his offer from the University of Georgia. We'll have an update on Braxton Kyle, who's another Georgia player who got an offer from the Bulldogs, and that is also not trending in Rutgers' direction at the moment. And we'll talk about this week and game prep coming up for the Howard game, the opening game of the season, which is now 10 days away. We'll get to all that and more. But first, this podcast is brought to you by Night and Day Apparel. Beat the heat this summer with our hot one-of-a-kind products. With temperatures rising, there's no better time to refresh your wardrobe with cool and stylish summer essentials. Whether you're planning a beach getaway, a picnic in the park, or simply lounging in the yard, we've got you covered. Visit our website today and explore a full range of summer essentials from pool floats and spatulas to bathing suits and tank tops. Use our promo code RUCKERSRIVALS to get 10% off your purchase. Shop now and keep chopping.
I think they have a new drop coming soon, if I recall.
Yeah, I think on Wednesdays they typically
Wednesdays, that's what it is. What's the next one? Predicting a historic season for Rutgers athletics. That would be the 22nd. It's Thursday.
Okay,
so
Thursday.
Curious to see what that one is.
And like we showed in the last pod, the loud cup is very loud. I've also been banned from blowing it in my house because it is that loud and that obnoxious. So you just have to trust me on it.
Over under, you've done that about 6 or 7 times in your house.
The other night I was playing, as a tangent, I was playing video games with my friends, and I was telling them about the read I was doing, and they're like, how loud actually is it? I was like, let me get it out and show you. And maybe I'd had a beer too. And it may have, shook the house, and I have neighbors on both sides. And it wasn't a good look. But
all right, that's fair.
It is what it is. And at the end of the podcast, we'll also tell you about the Night and Day giveaway and how to be involved in that. But if you've been listening, you probably already know how. But if you haven't, welcome back, and we'll tell you how to get involved with the latest giveaway we're planning on doing. Let's pivot now to the Chase Linton decommitment. If you had listened to our most recent episode where we talked about his situation, Richie put it as a 7 out of 10 on the worry meter. And I think we can say it is now at a 10 out of 10. I don't think he's going to be a part of the class. He got an offer from his in-state program he grew up rooting for, and he's taking a visit there in October. He's supposed to take a visit to Rutgers in October as well. But what's the latest on Chase Linton?
So decommitted, obviously. It sounds like that he was supposed to take an unofficial to Georgia October 11th and 12th. The 12th being a game day visit, which I think it is the Mississippi State game for them, if I recall. But so it doesn't matter regardless. He said he's going to still visit Rutgers and still check them out and still have them as a school that he's interested in. But at the end of the day, it's probably Georgia all the way. I already submitted a future cast for Georgia. It sounds like the home state school is going to win this one out. It's not too shocking because it is Georgia. He got had a workout for them in late July. And apparently, like, crazily impressed everyone, like to the point where they had to call Kirby Smart over to come check him out at the camp. And that kind of not sealed the deal, but that once they offered, that sealed the offer. Once you offer that Georgia kid from down the street from Atlanta, it was kind of just a done deal. He's a kid that grew up admiring Georgia, grew up watching Georgia, grew up like as a fan of Georgia. And we hear this a lot when it comes to out-of-state kids and out-of-state recruitments. Now, Rutgers got in on them early, did a good job landing them, did a good job evaluating before anyone else could. And that just shows that the staff has a good eye for talent. I think it was Julian Campenny who was his main recruiter there. But this is a guy that a lot of people question when he got hired. I had questions about it too. Like when you get a MAC-level coach that no one's really heard about and bring him over, there was some question marks, but the fact that he's doing this and shows a pretty good eye for talent, that multiple defensive linemen now have garnered new offers and Power 4 interest, it's always a good sign. But, yeah, this is probably going to be Georgia all the way. I'd be shocked if he even visited Rutgers again, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm reading here from an SI article on him. He's going to the UGA Clemson game as well, which I think is earlier in the season. I think that's one of their first games. So again,
that's
like we've said,
August 31st.
Okay. Yeah. So it's unfortunate to lose a recruit that Rutgers was in on first. It was his only visit. These things are going to happen occasionally. I don't fault the kid. It's kind of imagine like in a weird, bizarro world, let's say a New Jersey kid is committed to Iowa, but always wanted to go to Rutgers. Then he comes to Rutgers camp and he has a really good camp.
Mm-hmm.
He's been committed to Iowa for months. Schiano offers him, he waivers. Like, imagine how we'd feel in that situation. It would make sense for the kid and for our program to do the same thing. It just sucks when it happens when you're on the bad end of that kind of situation.
Yeah.
But
It's not the end of the world either. You have Robbie Johnson, Kanan Edwards, Miran Gurman, Raiden Bruin. So you have 4 other defensive end commits. So it's really not the end of the world. Now, are all those guys going to stay at defensive end? That's to be determined, because I know there's been some talk about Gurman potentially sliding inside because he's already 250, but he's also 6'6", so that's where it's a little bit weird there. Bruins is a freaky athlete. He's already 6'5", 255. Like, he's got Big Ten size already. And Robbie Johnson's an under-the-radar kid. I think a lot of people don't talk about him because he's playing down in Delaware. And if he played anywhere else, I think he'd have maybe not another star, but I think he'd be a little higher rated in the 3-star range.
Although the school he does play for in Delaware is the most prestigious school in the state in terms of football. That's like where the Readers went. They've produced a lot of talent over the years. A bunch of kids have gone to Penn State. Just regional powers from that school.
Yeah.
So
still, it's not the level of New Jersey. And that's my big point there. But I don't think it's at the end of the world here. Now they're going to keep looking for a defensive end. Doesn't mean they're going to get one. There's some names out there still. If you remember Zach Strange, aka actually Zach is his nickname, Charlandon Strange, former Syracuse commit. He ended up decommitting from Syracuse back in the end of June. I'm told that there's some academic things there. He was a former Pennsylvania kid, but now he's down at Carroll City High School down in Florida. So if he can get his academic stuff figured out, I think Rutgers could easily land him. He was very close to committing to Rutgers in the first place, but chose Syracuse back in January, and now just remains uncommitted. He's a former 4-star kid. I think he's a high 3-star now. A couple other names to keep an eye on would be Adam Shovlin, the Stanford commit. He's another Pennsylvania native that was up at St. Thomas More, but ended up transferring this offseason to the Lawrenceville Prep School in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. So he's kind of localish now too. He's also showed some love to Rutgers. Now, obviously, beating out Stanford's not the easiest thing in the world because the academics are supreme over there. So that one might be a little tough. And then there's a new kid that just transferred into Bergen Catholic in Phoenix, DeCosmo. He's related to 2019. I don't know if he was a 4-star or not. Aeneas DeCosmo. Doesn't have any he has one notable offer from Vanderbilt, but it's pretty old. I think it's from back in 2023 sometime. All his other offers are pretty small schools, but we'll see how he kind of develops at Bergen Catholic this year. Legit 6'5", 230 already. So just a couple names to keep an eye on there.
Yeah. And also another thing just to kind of think about is that there's always guys who have breakout senior years, and it might be a blessing in disguise because Rutgers might now have space available to select kids like that who kind of come out of nowhere.
Well, I mean, you're going to get 105 next year, technically. So
Yep.
I was told some interesting stuff. I didn't even tell you this. I forgot about this, actually, until now. They might not even use all 105. They might just use like 100 or something like that and use the 5 for whatever, for walk-ons and preferred walk-ons and stuff like that, because it is a cap at 105. It's not a 100. Like, you don't have to use 105 ships. You can use 90. You can use 80 still. A lot of schools, I was told, aren't going to use the full 105, which I found kind of interesting because the rules stated that you also have to do for every men's scholarship. It's probably going to have to be a women's scholarship as well. So I think football might be a little capped. They're not going to use all 105 and then use 105 women's scholarships. I don't even that's a lot of scholarships on top of basketball, on top of all the other men's sports that you have to match like perfectly. So football is the one that's like the common denominator where you're obviously going to go well over like 100. Like, you're not going to have 13. Like, basketball is 13 or 15, whatever. 15 next year. Like, you can match 15 and 15 for basketball. Football, you don't have a women's counterpart to match 80 to 100 scholarships. So that's where it gets tough.
Yeah, no, it doesn't surprise me that teams wouldn't necessarily use all of them, but we'll see how that actually plays out. Given Schiano historically has stretched the scholarship limits. but that's
Yeah.
to 85, not to 105. That might be too many, like you're saying.
Yeah, of course.
Let's talk about the other Georgia player that we mentioned at the top of the show, Braxton Kyle. Where do things currently stand with Rutgers and Braxton?
So as of, I'm going to say a week ago, maybe a little more than that, it sounded like Rutgers was still in a good spot. It sounded like Georgia had a little bit lower on the board. After his stellar performance in week 1 this week, or this past Thursday, whatever it was, in his first game of the season, it sounds like Georgia's kind of elevated him toward just near the top of the board. Right now, it's between who was it? They have I think his name's Kevin Wynn, if I recall correctly, from Florida State. They have him on the top of Kevin Wynn and Braxton Kyle, the top 2 guys to replace Christian Garrett, who just decommitted from Georgia as the 3 tech in this year's class. It sounds like Kyle is going to visit Georgia in September. Nothing is set in stone yet, but if he ends up visiting for a game, that's probably going to seal the deal. The big thing with Kyle right now is his mom is very high on academics. His mom is very close with the Rutgers staff. So that's playing in Rutgers' favor currently, although he wants to kind of look around. And of course, the hometown feel, or the home state school being less than an hour away instead of hopping on a flight and going up to New Jersey like every weekend to watch your son play makes things a lot easier for them. Plus, it's Georgia. It's like if it's the same. There's so much state pride down there. If you get the in-state offer from the big school, from the school that's won 2 out of the last 3 national championships, it's hard to say no to them. I think this one's going to end up going elsewhere. He also just got a Texas offer. He had Texas Tech recently, UNC offered recently. UNC's been pushing for a visit. They're trying to get him on campus in October. So right now, I think the fact that Georgia's pushing, I think if Georgia wants him, Georgia gets him. But either way, I still think UNC is going to try to get him on a campus. Texas is brand new, so I don't really know much about that offer yet. But this is a kid that legitimately 6'3", 320, like moves really well, crazy athletic, had an interception at defensive tackle this week. Also had a strip sack.
Yeah,
like
picked off a screen, an attempted screen. Really athletic move. That strip sack was impressive too.
I could probably pull it up for people if they really want to see it. I think I have it on our Twitter account. But either way, this is a kid that, like, another under-the-radar kid. I mean, look at his offer list before Georgia offered. Like, it's just a bunch of G5s and, like, not new. Yeah, I'll say no-name schools. It's like Austin Peay, like Bowling Green, Buffalo, Charlotte, Delaware, Georgia State, Marshall, Miami, Ohio, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the last couple of weeks, it's Texas, Texas Tech, UNC, Georgia, and it's like, I think Rutgers was one of only 2 Power 5, Power 4 offers he had other than Georgia Tech, but they got him on campus and got him committed. I think it's going to be tough to remain committed, but we'll kind of just wait and see. I mean, what are you going to do? This is just the way of recruiting. This is what happens when you recruit with the big boys.
Yeah, and when you can evaluate well, it's just inevitable that people are going to come after your guys. I know we've said that a lot, and it doesn't really take away the sting, potentially losing players, but it's better than having players that nobody really gives a crap about.
That is true too.
Okay, so that covers the main recruiting situations. Let's talk about team game prep. So game prep starts this week. You guys get to talk to Greg one more time before game prep starts, and that's tomorrow.
Tuesday. What's
Tuesday
today?
Is tomorrow.
Today's Monday. Oh my God.
Today's Monday. Yep. Welcome to the week. So what are some things that you'll be interested in hearing from Greg this week in your last media availability ahead of game prep?
Well, we know he's not going to reveal anything in terms of starters. I'll say there's probably going to be a surprise starter. And I think people are going to be like, whoa, didn't see that one coming. But yeah, I mean, I'm just curious to see there's not really much to talk about. Like we talked about this at the scrimmage on Saturday, like among all the beat writers, they're like, oh, what are you guys going to ask him today? I'm like, I don't even know because like we already know what the team looks like. We know what the depth chart is. It's almost the entire same team as last year. We know Athan's QB1. Like solidified there, like not even a competition. We now know QB2. He announced Johnny Shepard's that. The running back room is pretty damn good. The wide receiver room pretty damn good. Like I really don't know what their plan is here. Like I don't really know what to ask him anymore because it's like, oh, he said offensive line's set. Everything else is set. Like we've asked him enough about the young guys, like a ton of times, and he's went out of his way to mention a couple of them. Benjamin Black's one that he keeps mentioning. So I'm intrigued to see what his role is going to be this year. Dymere Miller is the wide receiver that everyone keeps talking about, whether it be the Big Ten crew, whether it be the players in their interviews. Everyone's talking about Dymere Miller. The other day we had who was it? We were talking to Shaquan Loyal. He mentioned Chris Long. Like, there's just a lot of similarity, or a lot of the same from last year. So it's like hard to like even ask him anything because number one, it's coach speak. Number two, he's never going to reveal his hand, and number three, it's just the same thing as last year. So it's like, what are you supposed to know? What are you supposed to ask? Like, if you guys have any questions, I'll try to pick his brain, but I can almost guarantee you he's going to give you a coach speak answer.
Yeah, he's a master at media training at this point, and media training his guys as well. You kind of mentioned how most of these guys that they do offer up to the media kind of are very buttoned up.
I mean,
you have a guy like Aaron Lewis, Aaron Lewis has personality, but he doesn't say anything inflammatory. He's just, a guy who is legitimately funny and charismatic, but he would never say anything in an interview that was like going to put the team in a bad situation. Like, he kind of is like a more contained Gronk in that sense, where Gronk would just kind of like be kind of silly and maybe say something that crossed the line. Aaron gets to that point but doesn't ever cross the line, which is I think he's got a career in media if he wants it after he's done playing football, whenever that is. Hopefully a long 100%. Time from now.
Yeah, but that's really it. The other thing I wanted to mention, I forgot to mention, another young guy that's been talked about a little bit was Kaj Sanders. Shaquan Loyal is actually his roommate, which I found kind of interesting. That a fourth year senior, whatever he is roommates with the true freshman. I thought that was kind of cool, but they're both from Newark. They both have connections there. So I just kind of something a little unique. You never really hear about a senior being a roommate with a freshman.
Yeah, I don't think I heard that either. So that's a pretty cool little anecdote there. And just position group members, getting closer is always a good thing as well.
Of course.
All right, that's all I got as well. A little bit shorter of an episode than normal, but we'll have something, I'm sure, this week going over what Greg said in his media availability tomorrow and any other news that may break between now and then.
True.
But we want to wish Pat Hobbs well as well. He's been great to us. He's been great to Rutgers University. I hope whatever health issues he has, he's able to get better from quick, and is able to enjoy whatever he chooses to do next in life, whether it be retire or another venture. But I know some people weren't necessarily happy with us speculating anything on the last pod, and we're not just saying things like this is just mentioning what's written in articles. We're not making things up. So but wish Pat well, and he's done some great things at Rutgers, and want to just recognize that once again. But
Night and day giveaway.
9-day giveaway, yes. So we are doing a giveaway, like I've mentioned several times now. You have to do two things in order to be eligible to be a part of the giveaway. The first is you must be following Night and Day Apparel on Instagram. I know you might be thinking, how are you going to prove that you do it? If you are the winner, we're going to ask you what your Instagram handle is, and if you're not following, you're going to be disqualified from the tournament or from the giveaway. So
out of here.
I just wanted to let you guys know. A lot of you probably think that we're not going to be able to check in on that, but that's how we're going to do it.
That's very easy to do.
Additionally, you need to write a comment in the video below mentioning Night and Day giveaway, or for 2 entries, you need to write a review on Apple Podcasts for the show or for the podcast mentioning the Night and Day giveaway. That'll get you 2 entries, assuming that you're also following them on Instagram. But that's how we do it. We'll give the 3 winners their prizes next week. We'll do an episode where we do the wheel spinning again. But until then, for me and Richie, this has been another edition of the Night Report Podcast. Signing off.